All right, y'all, I'm going to make this video and it's dealing with, I have to explain a couple of things and then it's going to transfer over to another sector that I have to talk about. But the first thing that I need to talk about and not just jump off the diving board, um, I'm going to I'm going to replace the real name with T. The person that I'm about to explain about is, I'm going to call her T. Okay. The thing about it is, I have to explain this a little bit before I connect it over to some of the stuff that's been happening in the real world. Okay, and not in a dream. And I've been trying to get back to being comfortable on talking about this type of stuff. So I'm just about to get on into it. So I'm gonna say T is somebody that I've been knowing most of my life. And it started from elementary school and living in the same neighborhood. And then I had to think that we worked together. And then when we worked together, we went out a few times. And then another big part of how we used to move back in the day is when we were in high school. Once everybody got into high school, a lot of people, we didn't use the school bus, the yellow duck, like they do now. We used to use public transportation, which was the public bus, the city bus. So that played a big part on how people interacted, because no matter if they went to the same school or not, or whether they lived in the same neighborhood, because they could have went to the same school but not lived in the same neighborhood, because that's the reason why people were catching the bus, because they were going places to schools that they weren't, um, it wasn't in their neighborhood. So that played a big part. And like I said, also, you didn't have to go to the same school, but you saw each other while you were catching the bus, transferring out and all of that. And like I said, that played a big part, because we saw each other in the morning times getting to school, and then we saw each other um, going home from school. And like I said, a lot of stuff happened during that time. A lot of interaction on the bus, off the bus, because sometimes people didn't catch the same bus, but just in the time that they was waiting on their buses to come, um, we interacted a lot before we got on our buses. So anyway, the thing about it is, like I said, I've known T most of my life. Now, I haven't really seen T, um, it's in and out over the years. But like I said, I've worked with her, and at the beginning of our lives, went we were in elementary, middle school, and high school. And like I said, when I went to public school, um, she went to the same public school that I went to in high school. So, and like I said, I went out with her when we worked together. So anyway, I'm gonna dive on into it, because it took this has transpired over time, with me realizing how this works as far as this connection with T. So, and I could only figure it out over time. Now, when we were younger, like I said, in elementary, middle school, and even high school, I can't remember if this happened. But when I worked with her and we were around each other for a good amount of time, the thing about it is, somebody close to her ended up committing suicide. And what ended up happening is, this is the first experience that I can remember. Before, and I didn't think nothing of it, before the person that she was close to committed suicide, I dreamed about her like a few days. I'll give it a few days before it actually happened. I'll just give that little time frame. Okay. Years passed on. And it wasn't even that, I'd say it might have been a couple, maybe, or a year or two. Okay. Another person that she was connected to real strong. And when I say strong, I'm going to say it like this. They could either be friends or they could be family. And the second person ended up having a situation with the law. And I really don't know what transpired to lead up to the interaction with the law, but the law ended up taking that person's life. Now, this was an older person. Now, going back before this happened, like I said, I'm clueless to all of this. As far as I had a dream about her before this happened. So when those two situations transpired, that's when I started getting a clue. But I still didn't think nothing of it because I've never heard anybody else really ever say anything about this kind of connection. Now, going on in life, this was probably, okay, these situations happened around the time that we worked together. Now, say we went on and we didn't work together anymore, but we were still, cross paths or whatever. Because like I said, this is somebody that was in the same neighborhood. And back then, this has been some decades ago. This was in the 90s. Both of these situations happened in the 90s. Okay, I want to say that it might have still, what I'm about to say might have still happened in the 90s, but it's a discrepancy on, did it happen in the late 90s or did it cross over into the early 2000s? Now, I had other situations where, now this was connected to myself. Like I dreamed about her, and then that's when it kind of, those two situations, the initial two situations, it kind of dawned on me just a little bit, but I didn't go real deep on it. I didn't go super deep on it. The first situation already grabbed a hold of me, but I had no idea that later on in life, this is what I'm explaining. Now, when I say it's connected to me, I would dream about her and somebody in my life would pass away. And that's why I say I had to figure this out over time. It wasn't something that it took one time to happen. Because I dream about people people that I see, people that I grew up with, I even dream about strangers. So the thing about it is, it took me a few of these situations happening. But what I've gotten down to is, when I dream about her, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That, let me say, I think it might have happened twice. I think, and sometimes it can, in this day and time, or the years back, dealing with the connection with me, it might have not happened immediately, but I really can't even pinpoint it to a certain degree. I can say that one of my family members that passed in 2003. So I want to say that it might have been around that time that I dreamed about her, that it didn't take too long. Maybe it might have been a few months, and not that many. Because when I say that I can't remember if I was really dealing with dreaming about her in the late 90s, but the 90s that I really started doing that and I started catching a hold of it was in the mid 90s. So anyway, like I said, I know this is a connection now. And sometimes when I dream about her, when I wake up, like it's other things that happen in the dream. I'm not just dreaming about her maybe in particular, and it could be either or. But it's really just a regular dream. And when I wake up, but now when I dream about her and I wake up and I'm coming into the regular world, realizing, oh, I just had a dream. Sometimes I say, oh, I dreamed about T. And then all of a sudden, it'll dawn on me on that other level, like, oh man, you just dreamed about T. Oh man, I forgot. And I have to remind myself, I come back to that reality of damn. And I'm going to tell you like this. This is another thing, because I've been dreaming about her a lot in the last few years. And it might have been a few times that I dreamed about her and I didn't even line up with understanding, or it just didn't dawn on me. Like, it might have been a lot going on in life, and I kind of put that to the side because I thought, this is how I'm going to explain it. When I first started realizing, like, them two people that she was close to, that they ended up passing, and I dreamed about her maybe no more than, now back then it might have been a few days or a couple of weeks. And I realized, oh, dang, you dreamed about T before that person, whatever happened, that passed away. So when you start lining that stuff up and you start saying, wait a minute now, and these are the people that she's connected to. And I'm talking about truly connected to. Like, it ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It ain't about saying, well, oh, I'm going to put it to you like this. These people she was connected to blood-wise. I said, yeah, that it could be friends, but being real, she was connected blood-wise. And sometimes I think I might have done had these dreams about her and just didn't line it up. Because like I said, a lot of stuff can be going on. This is back in the times when people in our age bracket, we was raising children, we was working jobs, we was just coming into adulthood and having responsibility. So some of that stuff, it clogs up your mind. But like I said, nowadays, and that's why I say you have to live certain stuff out over time. When I go back and I already done solidified that when I dream about her, it can be people that we know in locally, or it can end up being famous people, like celebrity people. It's dealing with death, period. And sometimes it can be both at the same time. So I'm going to say this. I think I done tapped into it enough for it to be understood. And like I said, I've never talked to anybody that has broken it down or said, yeah, I dream about certain people or a certain person. And when I dream about that person, it's going to be some death. At least one death. And like I said, it can be the people in my area, or it can be famous people, or it can be both. And I'm talking about recently, it really ain't, But I'm going to end it on that note, and then I'm going to come back, because that's a whole situation itself, because I've been meaning to talk about this particular person, and like I said, I'm calling her T, and it ain't nowhere near her real name or her nickname, because every time I started thinking of a name and I said something, I said, nah, that's too close. So anyway, the thing about it is,